Yeah, everyone, there's a sort of beauty you can find in someone's autistic obsession for like some topic or item that you yourself or anyone else would not care about at all. But for a certain person that really likes it, they may want to get into a lot of trouble for it, like including getting arrested. And that's the same case for this brave British countryman. And to be fair, his addiction isn't that bad, but I love his name anyways, Daniel Lingham. 100% honestly, all he really cares about is just, bird eggs. The most simplest thing to be fond of or addicted like they say, but it's more so the sheer volume that he was caught with as well that makes the story so bizarre. This all starts back in June of last year where he was at a nature reserve and he was caught on a wildlife camera stealing nightjar eggs, whatever those are. Like already, that sounds like the kind of thing like a normal person wouldn't give a about, but I'm sure like that's like a big craze in the bird community, whatever. I like the way this article tells the story because if it was birds' eggs, odds are they're all the way at the top of like a 40-foot tall tree, and if it was on camera as well, I would love to see the footage of him trying to like climb the tree, almost dying, but he's that obsessed with it that he'll keep going. Oh, and by the way, he's 71 as well. Like that's just pure autistic passion that he has deep in his soul. But anyways, sometime later in February, they raided his house and they found nearly 3,000 eggs, like not exotic eggs that he got from a different country, but still like the kind of rare ones that you'd have to go through a forest and find. And that was one weird thing I noticed in the story where they found him on the camera back in June, but they only caught up to him in February. Maybe there was some complication trying to find his face because I really doubt a wildlife camera out of the middle of nowhere would have the best quality to see the man's face exactly. But even then, they gave him more time to go around forest and build up his collection that's all nearly 3,000. And the worst part, that's not even a lifelong collection he's had since childhood, and I'll explain that in a minute. Because yeah, after they caught him, with a cocaine stash worth of eggs, at his own home, he was sentenced to 12 weeks in prison and suspended for 18 months. And legitimately, that's the best example of someone being in prison, where they look normal but creepy at the same time, and you ask them what they're in for, and I can't imagine the face on someone when they respond, I was caught with bird eggs, rare sort of bird eggs. That must give you some reputation. I doubt that anyone else would be in prison as well for a crime that's more measly than that. I would give it to him though. Throughout this video, when I mentioned bird eggs, you probably had in your mind the very typical, generic sharp brown ones they got from a farm, with thousands of chickens. But to be honest, in this picture, they look decently interesting, the kind of collection that if someone showed you this, you'd be mildly impressed. I'm not sure if I'd go as far as, to climb a tree, almost die, and then get caught by the police and be put in jail. But they don't look that bad, to be honest. Oh my god. I love in this article, they make it seem as miserable as possible, saying he could not help himself due to his addiction to collecting eggs. That's the kind of thing you would admit, before you got shot by a firing squad. The last thing you truly care about is world, just take it from you. But in terms of the 3,000 eggs he was caught with the only ones that were important were 548 of them, which were on the endangered amber list, not that bad. But then another 546 that were on the red list, the really bad ones, which is probably the one part where, he felt risky to get them, from a tree or whatever, from a park. And that was the one that let him to be on camera and, get the police to track him down. And on this red list I mentioned, the really bad ones that you can't steal from, they include linnet, green finch, yellowhammer, and house sparrow. Legitimately the most boring sounding names ever. Yellowhammer sounds decent, but to the average person, they wouldn't care about it at all. But I can tell that with this guy, he's the kind of person that, if you said that to his face, who gives a shit about these birds' eggs, he would stab you in the eye for that small statement because of how passionate he is. And those nightjar eggs I mentioned in the beginning of the video, they were actually found in a jar with a label on it behind a bath panel. Am I getting that right? A bath panel including a box. It was a box as well. You can tell he really cared about it if he hid it behind a bath panel, right? In a box, in a jar. The top priority out of all the collection. With the label said Nightjar 2, hold lows, June 9. If you saw on a VHS tape of some serial killer like Ted Bundy, that would be horrifying. But if in this context, of this guy with bird eggs, it feels more lighthearted, to be honest. He looks this picture. You can tell in the corner that was the one part the police found that he wasn't willing to hand over. He wouldn't care if he lost the other ones, but that was his top pride. I love in how most British crime reporting, no matter how minor it is, they make it seem really severe. With these statements, Ms. Jones said collectors kept eggs as trophies for personal gratification. Also saying if the whole clutch is taken and the species is anyway rare, the egg collection will have a damaging effect on conservation. There were also a couple of pretty good statements from his lawyer as well, expressed being addicted to egg collecting. It's that drive, that addiction that keeps people coming back, unfortunately. But by far the best one has to be from the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, where they call him a one-man machine for devastation. My god, that's heavy. But anyways, after that whole ordeal, he was ordered to comply with 12 months of mental health treatment and 15 days of rehabilitation activity days. Jesus Christ. On one side I understand, if he's that obsessed with it, with 3,000 eggs, I can understand where they're coming from. But there have been people with drug addiction, that have nearly died from it, and you put the guy, on the same par as them for just just having 3,000 eggs, like Jesus Christ. But I'm guessing the reason why they were so severe is mostly because, you know, he also did this before in the past twice as well. Once in 2005, we got 10 weeks of jail for having way more 4,000 eggs. And then another time in 2018, he had 18 weeks of jail and a 10-year criminal behavior order. Which, that's what I meant earlier about, like, you know, him doing it before in the past, which I feel like if he wasn't caught, like a Zodiac killer, and he kept collecting more and more, he'd probably have, like, you know, tens of thousands at this point. So this story was like one of those rare cases, you know, where something illegally happens, of course, duh. But the whole scenario, you know, the background information about it seems so bizarre. You can't imagine, like, you know, the actual sentencing that goes to the person that committed it. Maybe if I was obsessed with birds enough to be in the Royal House Society of Birds, whatever called before, maybe I would care way more about this. But right now at the moment, at my branded state, just the idea of someone getting arrested for 3,000 eggs, you know, it just seems fun to me, sorry, I have to admit it.